Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, September 29th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It was a vote bound to make some people happy, others not so much. San Diego Unified now recommending mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations for all eligible students and district employees. KPBS education reporter MG Perez lays out the details and the legal challenges ahead.
The message is clear.
The vaccine is safe, the vaccine is effective, and to combat this pandemic, we must get everyone vaccinated.
And there's this too.
We've got to kill the virus. And so this is our way of saying that we want it over with so we can get back to reality.
San Diego Unified board members and medical experts held a news conference this morning just hours after unanimously approving a COVID-19 vaccination mandate at their marathon meeting Tuesday night. The meeting was virtual and contentious. Dozens of people spoke during the public comment session for and very much against requiring all eligible staff and students 16 years and older to be vaccinated. Otherwise, they would be terminated or forced off campus.
And if I get coronavirus, it could be significantly worse for me.
18-year-old Zachary Patterson is the designated student board member. He voted for the mandate after publicly revealing for the first time that he is immunocompromised.
What I say is, remember me, remember us, remember the fact that we can change the outcome of this pandemic.
As the school district moves ahead with its mandate plans, opposition is not going away. There are still people with plenty to say, and they're going to keep saying it. Last evening, before the public board meeting began, hundreds of people postured and protested outside the school administration building. For many of them, it is a matter of choice they feel has been ripped away by the board's mandate.
That they're not planning to honor personal belief exemptions, that they're planning to remove kids from in-person learning. And there are a lot of state laws and regulations that say they can't do that.
Go ahead and get your student vaccinated if they're eligible, rather than to keep your kids out of school. That is not the decision that we're looking for, and that is not our goal.
Loud and clear, mandated COVID vaccinations are here. MG Perez, KPBS News.
Tomorrow, a statewide mandate for healthcare workers to be vaccinated or lose their jobs goes into effect. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman has more on the potential impact on an already strained workforce.
The numbers are pretty small for us.
At Scripps Health, CEO Chris Van Gorder says with the state mandate looming, there's recently been an increase in employee vaccinations. And a day before the requirement hits, just about 140 workers, or less than 1% of the workforce, aren't vaccinated or have approved exemptions.
I don't want to lose any employees. I mean, you'll hear from every healthcare organization. We have a lot of staffing shortages right now.
Per Scripps' policy, if those 140 employees aren't vaccinated by the end of day Thursday, they will lose their jobs.
We'll have some impact, but it'll be minimal impact. It's something we'll be able to absorb, I believe. We're terminating because that's what the rules say. But if our employees get compliant within the following month, they will be rehired and full status resumed, full seniority resumed, all of that within the same month.
Many other local health systems, including Sharp, Kaiser, and Palomar Health, are putting non-compliant employees on unpaid leave for a month or two before facing termination. Van Gorder says he's hearing that the state may allow some hospitals to delay implementing the mandate.
What I'm hearing is that for an organization that is really facing a significant staffing shortage and immediate adoption of the regulations could create a problem for patients, I think they'll be given a short-term extension.
The state's public health officer who authorized the requirement says this is a critically important mandate to ensure the safety of everyone at healthcare systems, adding that officials are continuing to do what they can to make sure people get vaccinated, but this is a deadline they are watching closely and expecting full compliance. While Scripps has less than 1% of employees facing possible termination, other systems have more. A spokesperson for Sharp Healthcare says they have 3% of their workforce, or 539 employees, unvaccinated and without exemptions. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
More than half of the total population of the United States is now fully vaccinated against COVID-19. New CDC data released today shows 55.8% of all Americans are fully vaccinated. That's more than 185 million people. And we just got updated numbers here in San Diego County. Nearly 79% of eligible residents are fully vaccinated, while over 88% have gotten at least one dose. One thing that's gone hand in hand with the pandemic since it began are questions. Some of the latest ones surround booster shots, testing, and the new R1 variant. KPBS reporter John Carroll brings us answers to some of the most pressing questions from a leading expert.
Shortly after the COVID-19 pandemic began, KPBS launched a COVID blog on our website, kpbs.org, to answer your questions on a whole host of COVID-related issues. It has remained one of the most visited pages on our website ever since. In addition, we regularly call on experts to help us understand where we are in this pandemic. Today, it was Dr. Eric Topol, the director of the Scripps Research Translational Institute in La Jolla. He spoke to KPBS Midday Edition, and the top question was the new variant spreading in California called R1. On that, Topol had good news.
It has no worry with respect to outcompeting Delta. Delta is the issue. There hasn't been a variant yet that we've seen, including R1, that has any features that will compete with Delta.
With the school year upon us, lots of parents are wondering when their young ones can get the shot. Right now, 12 to 16-year-olds can get it under an emergency use authorization. But what about those under 12?
We're expecting that sometime in the month of October it will get reviewed, possibly by end October or early part of November. If everything looks good, it could get an emergency use authorization.
One area where the U.S. is badly lagging the rest of the industrialized world is in testing. Many countries distribute free rapid tests, which Dr. Topol says are very effective in limiting the spread of the virus.
It's just amazing to me that throughout this period we haven't gotten this straight, and our FDA is still the bottleneck to get these tests out there.
Finally, boosters. The FDA approved them 1 week ago for people 65 and older, those with certain health conditions, and for people who work in healthcare settings. At this point, the only data on the effectiveness of boosters is from Israel with the Pfizer vaccine.
By getting the booster, there was a 20-fold increase of protection, that is restoring it to the original level of protection.
Moderna and J&J have yet to submit data on the effectiveness of booster shots, leading to more questions as the COVID-19 pandemic drags on into what will soon be month number 19. John Carroll, KPBS News.
City of San Diego employees were told to get vaccinated or find another job. Coming up on Evening Edition, why the mandate has been delayed and for how long. Time is running out for Congress to stave off a shutdown with money to fund government operations set to run out in less than 48 hours. As Chris Nguyen reports, the mad scramble includes much of President Biden's domestic agenda.
Progress on Capitol Hill as congressional leaders work towards averting a government shutdown before funding expires Thursday night.
To prevent a government shutdown, Senate Democrats will be introducing a continuing resolution that keeps the government open until early December.
But with one crisis likely avoided, Democrats now trying to save the president's domestic agenda. Progressives are pushing back over Speaker Nancy Pelosi's plan to hold a House vote Thursday on a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill before striking a deal on a separate $3.5 trillion social safety net package.
We've always said that we support the president's agenda. That agenda is the Build Back Better Act as well as the infrastructure bill. If you just did the infrastructure bill, that's 9% of what the president wanted to get done.
Pressure now being placed on 2 Senate moderates to clarify what it will take to get it done. But so far, they remain tight-lipped.
All we need to do is pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill, sit down and start negotiating in good faith.
The fight over the debt limit also ramping up, with the government set to run out of money to pay its bills by mid-October. Republicans voting earlier in the week to block a bill that would avoid a debt default.
It's the Democrats that want to take on all this debt to pay for all of this massive spending. And it's the Democrats that are going to have to raise the debt ceiling.
House Democrats now introducing a new bill to suspend the debt ceiling, but face an uncertain road ahead. In Washington, Chris Wynn, KPBS News.
Are you having trouble finding certain items on the store shelf or notice some prices surging? The answer is likely because of what's happening right off of the coast of Southern California. Reporter Stacey Butler explains.
Almost 70 cargo ships and counting from Long Beach to Laguna.
It's getting worse every day.
I've been trucking 31 years or something, 31 years.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, this is a phenomenon, for real. This is bad.
Few are more frustrated about the backlog at the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach than truck drivers caught in the chaos.
I got friends right now, they are in line at Hanji in TTI terminal from 9 o'clock in the morning, and they haven't pulled the load yet. The longshoremen and the people inside, they get paid by the hour, but not the drivers.
Some blame outdated infrastructure, importers with nowhere to store the containers, and dock help not keeping up with demand.
Last night I was there from 8 o'clock to 3 in the morning, and I couldn't get, they kicked me out because they leave at 3 o'clock, so I'm out. And they only have, one crane for 60 trucks. And you know what the thing is? It's ridiculous. They have 2 other cranes sitting.
So how often does it happen where you show up, wait 8 hours, and then get turned away?
Wow, man. Like, out of 10, a good 6 or 7 times.
Gene Soroka, the executive director of the Port of Los Angeles, just finished a massive study of the port's weak spots. He knows truckers need help. He just launched Accelerate Cargo LA, a pilot program to get cargo moving and fast. But it likely won't be enough. He says the feds have got to step in.
Over the last 10 years, the federal government and Congress has outinvested West Coast ports at a rate 11-1. That's got to change. And with an infrastructure bill pending vote in Congress this week, we need all eyes on Los Angeles. This is what 10 years of underinvestment looks like, and we need to move forward.
Mail delivery could slow down as early as Friday. The U.S. Postal Service says most first class and periodicals will be unaffected, and a single piece of first class mail traveling locally will continue to be 2 days. However, there might be increased transit times for long distance deliveries. Also, prices will increase for the holiday season beginning October 3rd and ending on December 26th. The national eviction ban is being lifted at the end of the month, impacting millions of renters. Surprisingly to some, only a small portion of the billions of dollars for federal assistance has reached those who need it. Reporter Jen Sullivan with a look at what's being done to help people stay in their homes.
Hello.
This time it's for real. A nationwide ban on evictions coming to an end this week.
It was the last remaining protection that was keeping many of these families stably housed during the global health emergency.
After the Supreme Court struck down the CDC's eviction moratorium, several states like New York and Illinois and even some parts of California announced plans to extend the ban. The National Low Income Housing Coalition says currently there are roughly 6.5 million households behind on rent after losing jobs, work hours, and wages during the pandemic.
There are estimates that about 40% of renters are currently protected by state or citywide eviction moratoriums.
But now that safety net is disappearing for millions of tenants, like Christina Toscano, who applied for assistance and fears the worst.
Being evicted with my child and not having anywhere to go. I just think about my son, what am I going to tell him?
The National Low Income Housing Coalition says only about $10 million of the $45 billion in aid allocated by Congress has gone out to people in danger of losing the roofs over their heads. Housing advocates say more needs to be done federally, but also on the state and local level as well.
Governors and mayors should implement or extend eviction moratoriums at least until all the emergency rental assistance reaches the tenants and landlords who need it.
For today's Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
The San Diego Housing Federation held a roundtable meeting today with agencies across the county working to meet the needs of affordable housing and homelessness. Those who attended were the County Housing and Community Development Services and the San Diego Housing Commission. They discussed new funding sources like the American Rescue Plan Act. Other takeaways included more development for affordable housing and supervisors allocating $50 million to create more than 13,000 units.
Wanted to make sure that we're looking at quality projects that really added to, the community fabric. So we're looking at properties and projects that really have a component related to transportation.
The Regional Task Force on Homelessness also spoke during the meeting. They're asking for public input to create an action plan to prevent and end homelessness in San Diego. You can go to their website, rtfhsd.org, to submit a comment. People who live near the San Diego International Airport live with noise. Now the airport's gotten its biggest grant ever to try to give neighbors some relief. Nearly $26 million from the FAA for noise mitigation. 400 to 500 homes a year could get retrofitted with things like new exterior doors and windows, all to provide better sound insulation.
We're looking at some warmer air that's going to be making its way into the picture for this weekend, especially for some of the coastal areas and a little bit further inland. The mountains and the deserts don't really see a whole lot of changes here in the forecast, but we're also watching for the possibility of a pattern change next week, and along with that, some potential moisture that could work its way into the picture. As we head into tonight, temperatures fall off into the mid-50s for you in Oceanside, mid-60s in San Diego, 60 degrees in Chula Vista for that overnight low, 66 out towards Borrego Springs. Thursday, the big picture stories, of course, the big dip in the jet stream here across much of the Four Corners area. Just off to the west of that, though, we're going to be watching that warm offshore flow that could allow for some winds to pick up into some of the higher terrain. The mountains here likely for the later part of this work week. Temperatures for tomorrow, mid-80s for you in Escondido, 87 out towards Ramona, Borrego Springs, low 90s for you for those daytime highs. By Friday, though, we start to see an increase in the onshore flow here, so pattern will change a little bit. Temperatures, though, do look to warm up. Again, near the coast, we go from the upper 70s up into the low 80s Friday, Saturday, and heading into Sunday. Along with that, plenty of sunshine in the forecast for you near the coast. Further inland, temperatures generally sitting in the upper 80s for you through Saturday and Sunday. And then after that, we could see a little bit of a drop off, perhaps back down into the mid 80s as we head into the start of the new work week. In the mountains, not a whole lot of changes here. We're generally going to be sitting in the low to mid 60s. It's going to be cool out there. However, the good news is that does come with sunshine, so not a lot of complaints here. And in the deserts, temperatures generally sitting in the low to mid 90s over the next couple of days with no wet weather in the forecast. But again, as I mentioned, we could see some of those changes next week. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Jessica Pash.
A local group has launched a social media campaign to try to keep a sexually violent predator out of Rancho Bernardo. The California Department of State Hospitals wants to put Douglas badger into a home with a golf course view. A hearing on the plan is scheduled for next month, and the Chelsea's Light Foundation is asking people to flood the Sheriff's Department with emails against the placement. The foundation is named for Chelsea King, a Rancho Penasquitos teenager murdered just over a decade ago by another sexually violent predator. Her father, Brent King, has worked to get laws passed to keep these predators from being released.
If you have a history of doing this, how do you not redo it? Badger's going to commit a crime again if he gets the opportunity. It's a given.
King says if Badger had been tried under Chelsea's law, he'd never have been released. Earlier this year, a judge ruled against a proposal to place Badger in a home in the Mount Helix area.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, the president's economic agenda hangs in the balance as negotiations intensify between Democrats on Capitol Hill and the White House. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
San Diego was the first major city in the county to issue a vaccine mandate for its workers. The deadline has now been extended, but the vaccine mandate is still in place. KPBS reporter Melissa May spoke with a legal analyst on what this means for San Diego's unvaccinated city employees.
The city of San Diego currently employs over 11,300 workers, including police, firefighters, white and blue-collar jobs.
The city can certainly mandate a vaccination for its employees, subject to the widely received exceptions for bona fide religious objections and medical conditions or disability that make getting vaccinated unwarranted.
Legal analyst Dan Eaton says the city is within its rights to enforce a vaccine mandate.
We're talking about a pandemic, the exposure to which has potentially life and death consequences. And when you're talking about city workers, you're talking about broad exposures to the city population.
On Tuesday, city officials announced that unvaccinated city employees now have until December 1st to get fully vaccinated. The original deadline was November 2nd.
Well, I assume the reason for the extension is to give the city more time to bargain with the union and to make sure that they really have explored all possible avenues towards reaching agreement. That is always the preferred alternative.
Eaton explains why negotiations are happening.
A vaccine mandate is a change in the terms and conditions of employment, and the city has a duty to bargain in good faith over that change. But the city is taking a hard line because the pandemic has proven to be uniquely uncompromising in its impact and its the effect that it has as an obstacle to resuming normal business operations.
Unfortunately, unvaccinated city employees do not have a lot of options.
The whole idea of a mandate is that if there is noncompliance, the consequence is termination of employment. And so that's what you will see.
If unvaccinated employees are fired, Eaton says it could be a strain on the city.
What you're going to have is a strain on resources. Not as many people are going to be available to do the jobs that need to be done, which means more overtime, which is a higher expense to the city, and it means more being done with fewer people.
Negotiations are scheduled to begin November 1st on how medical and religious vaccine exemptions will work. Melissa May, KPBS News.
We've redesigned our website, kpbs.org. It looks a little different, but you can still find the latest on the pandemic and resources in the Tracking COVID-19 section. You'll find it under the News tab on our homepage. Military families are getting settled in new communities as they leave old assignments and head to new duty stations. And they report that isolation from family and friends is increasing for them, outpacing deployments as a top concern. Blue Star Welcome Week, underway now, is an effort to reverse this troubling trend. Brianna Keeler introduces us to one family making the transition.
I'm an old hat at it at this point.
Aaron Lawrence's family, just like 600,000 other military and veteran families this year, is settling into a new house in a new city.
So we've moved 8 times in the last 18 years. We lived on both coasts. We did a couple years overseas.
Those moves bring challenges.
Housing and trying to get schools set up. The biggest challenge I've found is getting connected to people.
Most military families don't live on military bases. They live in civilian communities like yours, and they're struggling to connect. Only 1 in 4 say they have a sense of belonging in the places where they live. 1 in 3 don't have anyone to ask for a favor.
When we moved from overseas to Florida, I needed to find an emergency contact. I knew nobody in the area.
That's why Blue Star Families has launched Welcome Week to link civilian communities and the military families that live in them. With events scheduled across the country and online toolkits to encourage businesses and organizations to welcome families and schools to accommodate new students.
It's the schools that did a great job integrating the kids that make for successful, happy military families. That helps readiness, it helps retention, it helps everything.
Former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, retired Army General Joseph Dunford, who is raising awareness about the initiative with his wife Ellen, recalls how new friends and neighbors helped ease his mind while he was deployed.
And getting notes back from our sons and our daughter that they were welcomed in the community, they had made good friends, they were involved in activities. It it made all the difference in the world to me in my ability to focus on my job.
If you have neighbors who right away step in when they see that giant moving van show up at your home and say, what can we do to help? What might you be looking for? That right there would solve a huge amount of concerns that a family has when they move.
Erin Lawrence knows that all too well. Even this veteran of military moving season is feeling lonely in her new neighborhood.
We've been here 3 months now. I can count on one hand how many people that live directly around me that I have met. I found it takes about 6 to 8 months to truly get connected into your community. If it happened a little sooner, that would be, I think, that'd be nice.
It doesn't take much to help military families confront the epidemic of isolation they are facing. Just small kindnesses that can make a big difference.
I would recommend just coming over and saying hi and introducing yourself.
Brianna Keeler, Washington.
San Diego has sent firefighters and animal control officers up to the Dixie Fire. Now a fire victim is here. He's a 7-month-old bear cub who got his paws burned. The San Diego Humane Society says this little guy approached firefighters in late August. After getting some care in Northern California, he was sent down to the Ramona Wildlife Center, where he'll stay until he's ready to be released back into the wild. This is one of 6 orphaned cubs at the center right now. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.